Uganda joins the rest of the workers around the world on 1st of May 2019 to celebrate the International Labour Day in Karagaba district. According to the 2017 National Labour Force Survey, Uganda's labour force is slightly over 9 million people with a time-related underemployment of 11.6% and income-related underemployment of 45.4%. Join us this Thursday morning on the 2nd of May at 11 a.m. in a live talk show on Extrapolating the Real Labour Situation of Uganda, what the nation ought to do to maximize the potential of its labour force for sustainable development and the action the labour force ought to take to assure its betterment. This show is brought to you by the platform of Labour Action, PLA.
Thank you, our viewers, for joining us. I'm Karagaba, Baldwins, and we're coming to you live from the Kampala International Conference Center. On the backdrop of yesterday having celebrated the International Labour Day, we find it pertinent that we do a properly structured, comprehensive discussion about the labour situation in Uganda. So before we go into a detailed studio discussion, as we disrupt normal programming, let's have this introduction just to make an overview of the whole subject.
Labour is the keystone of development of human life, personality, and civilization. The generation of income-generating employment opportunities is necessary for proper human living. Over a number of generations, a consensus has been reached on how to uphold, protect the dignity, and better the lives of the employed people, christened as International Labour Standards. These standards refer to conventions agreed upon by international actors, resulting from a series of value judgments set forth to protect basic worker rights, enhance workers' job security, and improve their terms of employment on a global scale. The intent of such standards then is to establish a worldwide minimum level of protection from inhumane labor practices through the adoption and implementation of said measures. From a theoretical standpoint, it has been maintained on ethical grounds that there are certain basic human rights that are universal to humankind. Uganda's laws provide for different rights of employees. The rights are to be observed both by the employer, the employee, and all persons that will be engaged in the course of employment. Article 40 of the Ugandan 1995 Constitution provides that 1. Every person in Uganda has the right to practice his or her profession and to carry on any lawful occupation, trade, or business. 2. That every worker has a right to form or join a trade union of his or her choice for the promotion and protection of his or her economic and social interests. 3. Every worker has a right to collective bargaining and representation. 4. Every worker has a right to withdraw his or her labor according to law. And 5. Every woman who is a worker has a right to be accorded protection during pregnancy and after birth in accordance with the law. In the wake of the just celebrated 1st May International Labour Day, where Uganda did so in Karagaba district, NTV, in conjunction with Platform for Labour Action, bring you candid reflections on the situation of our labour and employment situation in Uganda, the laws, the challenges, and what the country needs to do in its national labour framework approach to uplift the lives and productivity of its labour force. You're welcome.
And thanks for keeping with us. I'm Karagaba, Baldwins, and we've posted questions online on our online platforms on Facebook and Twitter, asking you that what is your assessment on how the labour in Uganda is actually managed and how people are treated, both by government and the private sector. So go online. I can already see Rebecca, Brittany, Teacher Brian, John Kerr, Weza, Robert, all of you responding. Please keep on and make citation of your contributions as we proceed on in this discussion. And I have a prolific panel from Platform for Labour Action. And you're both welcome. Before I introduce your names, Betty Iyamuremye, Advocacy and Communications Officer, Platform for Labour Action. Betty, you're welcome.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here.
All right. Then at the extreme end, I have Lydia Bwiite, Manager, Rights, Social Protection and Accountability, Platform for Labour Action. Lydia, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, you're putting yourself in the shoes of taking on this particular mega subject. First of all, just help us to know what platform for... Oh, Betty, let me, I think, start with you. You're more suited, I think, to answer that question. You're located across the country, both here central, you're in the eastern region, in Uganda, northern region, in Nira. What exactly are you trying to do as Platform for Labour Action?
Thank you, Baldwin, and good morning, viewers. Platform for Labour Action was founded in 2000. By that time, there was a need for a unified voice of the gaps or the issues that were being faced by workers, but especially the vulnerable workers. So we needed a voice of a group or a person who would come out and fight and protect the rights of the workers, but most especially the vulnerable workers. So by then we were targeting women, youth, and those children in exploitative working environment. But today we have also brought on board vulnerable workers that include the domestic workers. Those workers we prefer calling maids. We have also put on board those workers in the migrant sector. You know that right now we have a lot of influx of both boys and girls going abroad to seek for employment. So we have also added on to those vulnerable people the breastfeeding mothers, who we think need special attention and are vulnerable because of their nature of situations within which they work. So as Platform, we have come up to be on the front line. We are at the helm of fighting for the rights of the vulnerable workers across the board. And then, like you clearly said, we are in Kampala. We are located in Ntinda, but also have regional offices in Uganda and in Lyra district. Basically, some of the issues we deal with is getting employers and employees at the same level. For example, we do mediations in case there are disputes between workers and their employees. We represent workers in court just in case there is need for workers to get free legal representation. And then at the advocacy level, we are into policy and laws, regulations and implementation. We follow a lot of issues going around, the labor issues, and like you said, yesterday was our day, and we were ably represented at the national celebrations, and we continue to be at the helm of fighting and protection of the rights of the workers.
Yeah, and we are grateful for having this partnership, for this discussion. Lydia, you're taking on the shoes of a government official who we had required to be here.
Yes.
Because we needed a government voice on some of these questions, but you can take them on.
Yes.
Article 40 of the 1995 Constitution provides several things. Of course, the rights of the worker, the obligations involved. Just as a viewer is out there, perhaps who is not very delved into the whole structuring and the legislation and regulation of the Uganda labor system, just give us an overview of how that structure is.
Thank you. One, already, like you noted, the rights of workers start right from the Constitution. And maybe to the viewer, the Constitution is sort of like the supreme law from which all other laws come from. If I was using a literal meaning, it would be like it's the mother of other laws. So Article 40 is the basis of the labor laws in this country. So once the Constitution gives an article, then the Parliament, still under the same Constitution, is given powers to go ahead and now make what we call acts of Parliament, so to actualize that particular provision or the article within the Constitution. So Parliament over the years has gone ahead to perform its duty in ensuring that the workers, we have a robust legislation, legal framework for the workers. So first we have the Employment Act of 2006. This act, this is sort of like the general law that governs the employment relationship in the country. It has a general application to all employees and employers. So it talks about the rights of a worker at the workplace, maternity leave, annual leave, and name it. And of course it also talks about the duties of the employer, but also it has issues to do with disciplinary procedures. In case I do something wrong as a worker at the workplace, how is my employer supposed to take action against me? But at the same time, also in there are implied responsibilities towards me as a worker or an employee. We also see, besides regulating the employment relationship, the Parliament or government also went ahead to say that is now that Employment Act regulates employment relationship within the private sector. But when you go to the public servants, or those, they have what we call the Public Service Act. So meaning it's not the same law that governs public servants and then those who are working in the private sector. So the Employment Act basically governs those working in the private sector, and then the Public Service Act governs those working in the public service or government per se. And then we see what we call social protection laws. We look at the NSSF Act.
Actually, we're going to have a discussion about social protection.
Yes,
rights, so
yes. So we have the NSSF Act. We also have, of course, the Parliament asked itself that what would happen when the worker or the employee and the employer get issues at the workplace. So they came up with a law, what we call the Labor Dispute Resolution and Settlement Act of 2006 also. So this law basically is looking at how do we resolve labor disputes once they occur at the workplace? Who is in charge? The labor officer is in charge. From the labor officer, where do we go? We go to the industrial court. That's sort of like is the court that deals with labor-related matters. And then also we see the union. Because remember Article 40 also talks about every worker having a right to come together, to unionize, collective bargaining, to come together and form a union or join a union. So again, Parliament went ahead and made an act of Parliament, which we called the Labor Unions Act of 2006. Why someone is going to ask, did we start having laws in 2006? No. In 2006 there was an overhaul of the old laws, so they came up with new laws in the labor and employment sector. So we have the Labor Unions Act, and this is basically about workers in the different sectors coming together for the common good or the same interest, and organize or join any other union within your sector, that people feel like you have the same interest. So we have quite a number of laws along that, and then we also have what we call the Workers' Compensation Act. Now that particular law deals with accidents at the workplace or diseases that are acquired as a result of that work. You could be, for example, maybe working with an agricultural institution, and maybe you are exposed to you handle a lot of chemicals, and maybe those chemicals somehow spilled on you, and then you had to, maybe you contracted a disease. So that law deals with when I get an accident in the course of employment, who is supposed to treat me? If, for example, this accident resulted into a permanent incapacitation, what what is the employer supposed to do to compensate me, at what percentages. It has in terms of the responsibility of the employer towards me, in terms of treating me, but also me to inform my employer that I have got an accident in case my employer wasn't there when I was getting the accident.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty comprehensive. The same particular kind of irony. Have very brilliant laws, and people wonder how come. But I'm going to go for a break. But when we come back, what is being done? What are the efforts? Because of course yesterday we were listening to all these speeches from Karagaba district about the celebration of International Labour Day, and several things came up. But in practical terms, based on your experience as an advocacy agency, what is being done to just ameliorate and better the situation of employees in the labour world of Uganda? Now, viewers, let's go for a break, and then we'll come back just to have a much deeper, comprehensive discussion of this subject. Thank you for keeping with us. We find it very important that we discuss about issues of labor. The labor aspects internationally were actually brought up in the eve of setting up the International Labour Day celebration on the helm of people fighting for freedom to make sure that they are not repressed or abused by their employers, capitalism, and or other isms that try to repress people. So it's a freedom fighting approach, and we have to discuss and conceptualize this whole aspect. And I can see Rebecca Brittany Asilo on Facebook as we posted the question. She says that it is so much easier to be self-employed or work in a different country. It is not only the employment sector, the whole socio-economic and especially political setup of Uganda is way below human standards of living. We are trying to assess the situation of employment here in Uganda. And Betty, so you have duties of an employer enlisted out in the Employment Act 2006, and it asks that the employer has a duty to give his or her employees work when they have hired that person, that every employer has a duty to pay his or her employees proper salary as stipulated. But some of these things, actually most of these things, are not happening appropriately in the employment sector or in the placement system of this country. What exactly what should be done? What is being done to ameliorate this situation, to make sure that the employer gets, rather the employee gets empowerment to actually have the employer live to their duties?
Okay, thank you once again. As we started this show, you ran some statistics that showed that 9.9 million people are employed in the 9.9. Yes. 9.9. Yes. They are employed in the labor force, and they are in the labor force and are employed. Then, according to that same survey, the National Labor Force Survey, it also looks at 34% of employees in the wage form of employment. Most times when we talk about labor issues, these are the people that we are referring to. But the question is, where is the rest of the labor force? Yeah? If only 34% are me, you, and her, where are the where is the 60? Yes. Where are they? Are they also being advocated for? Are their rights being respected? So the issue in Uganda we are grappling with is segmentation of employment. Yeah? Do we have people who are comfortably working even in the 34% wage employment, or do we still have people in that segment also having issues with their employers in terms of their rights being respected and the fulfillment of the employee also respecting their workplaces? So the situation has been that there has been an enabling environment across the workforce for the wage category of employment where there are rules and regulations in specific areas of employment. Then we have laws, yeah, and regulations that govern, like my colleague has talked about. We have the Employment Act. Though this Employment Act should also be amended because it is way outdated. Most of the issues we keep referring to are no longer to the task, in as far as the issues that are affecting, the issues that are affecting us. Then the situation has also been improved by the civil society interventions. For example, the Platform for Labour Action is here, advocating for the rights of these workers. And the workers, we mean employers and employees. We have other civil society organizations doing the same advocacy. Others are into social security. Others are into seeing to it that these workers are compensated when they are injured. Then for us as Platform for Labour Action, ours is, are these people seeking redress if their rights are trampled on? And if they can't afford, can we come in and offer them free legal services? Responsibilities of employers. An employer should know that once this person is employed at my duty station, then there has to be terms and conditions clearly set out.
Which is a contract.
Normally they are not, for the wage, for the segment of the wage employment category, they are clearly set out sometimes. But when we get to the informal sector, most times there are no terms and conditions. Just, these people are just told, can you start tomorrow? You say, because you're desperate, how start? Then you work, after 30 days, you don't even know your title, you don't know your kind of responsibilities that you're going to handle, you don't know how much you're going to be paid. But because you are desperate to get off the streets, here you are now starting to put the employer at task to come out and clarify on some of these issues. But it's a bit late now, and then that is when they're looking for Platform for Labour Action. Platform for Labour Action, please come and help me. This person has refused to pay me. But from the start, the employer did not clearly stipulate what the responsibilities of the employees were. And just because I need to deal with just relevant, rather connected issues. And it seems like some of these employers are deliberately doing some of these things trickably as a way to, to exploit people deliberately. It's not necessarily that they're doing this out of ignorance. And just let me inquire from Lydia about yesterday's discussion, rather about yesterday's celebration. The international theme was that we are supposed to unite workers for social and economic advancement. So how do workers, just briefly, how do workers get into this gear, into this game of ensuring that they actually gain from the employment and they put to task the employer society to make sure that they don't abuse them or they don't abuse us? I think including
yes, including all of us that are seated here. One, for uniting, it just reminds me of course, one of the laws that we have. That's the Labour Unions Act. If right now it's only 13% of the labor force that is under union, those that are under a union or a labor union, of the labor force And those labor force, like Betty noted, those are in like formal employment, not the informal. So if only 13%, it means that majority of the workers are not unionized. And you see, it's very easy for when you're alone to be pushed around. But I think what this theme, the international theme, was trying to say, like, to encourage most of the workers to join together, to come together and have one single voice, whether in a union or an association. When when you go collectively, you saw teachers when they went on strike, the entire country, government, teachers, the entire country. Let me tell you, the government had nothing to do but to ensure that they respond to the demands that they were making. So it's very important for workers, all of us, to come together in whatever sector where you belong. And so that when you're bargaining, because remember we have what we call the CBAs, or the collective bargaining agreements. These collective bargaining agreements are very good, because when you bargain as collectively, you bargain better than when you are alone.
Just a slight pause on that.
Yes.
Because you see, when we come into companies, including this very company that I'm talking about, the human resource person or the manager gets you secluded. They make you write rather a pen the signature on a contract that they don't want you to negotiate. You are alone by yourself.
Yes.
You do not have a third party element or a collective element that comes to deal with you. So how do you break that?
For example, how do you break that? Is by you joining, because remember the Constitution says you can either form or join an existing one. You can either form or join. Even when you're at work already, you can join. And once you join, then it means that this employer will be mandated to accept the CBA. So meaning the workers at that particular workplace will collectively bargain for their rights, for their benefits. And we've seen this work, even in the sectors like hotels, leisure and industry. We've seen labor unions actually doing also a good job. They are few years, but they're also doing a good job. So let me give you another example, not necessarily labor unions. Remember Madam Jennifer Musisi, when she just came in Kampala as executive director. She had the idea, I'm sure as KCCA they had the idea of saying that we don't want border riders in the city. And guess what? They failed. You know why they failed? Because border riders in the city are under associations. They stood their grounds, they put their demands on the table, and of course they also went with other options and said, okay, instead of chasing us, register us. Let us have border stages and everything. So when you're together as workers, you united, you speak one voice. And once you speak the one voice, even you're able to bargain better. And let me tell you, the world over, look at the UK. The UK, the Labour Party is very strong, because and even the government fears it, because workers will forever be the engines of the economy, because we work in the businesses, we are the ones driving these businesses of them, whoever is, the owner. So because we are the engine, if you are together, you are able to demand better. You may just imagine if let me say out of 100, if 13, so the remaining is what? Is around 90 something? No, 87. Just imagine 87% were unionized in this country. Just have that picture whereby 87 were under unions and they were speaking the same. And let me tell you, all the demands that workers need in this country, they will be responded to. Because once you go on strike and lay down your tools, the entire economy will come at a standstill.
Okay.
Yes.
Just on a pause, just about a minute, Betty. It'd be a very common aspect, minimum wage, and I think that's what most of the country people out there would wish, that if you're employed, there's a certain basic minimum standard earning that you get from the person who is employing you. And of course, the bill was passed by Parliament pretty recently in Feb. And you have Honorable Paul Muir, who said that people are left, that people work for so little, yet they have to survive. People are left in the vicious cycle of poverty because they consume all they earn. And there is this kind of ridiculous and very heated debate against the minimum wage. Why is it that government feels that this thing should not pass, minimum wage? Because the president has been actually one of the proponents, with the opponents against the minimum wage. Just a minute or two. Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank the members of Parliament for having passed this bill into law, as much as now it is in controversy. Minimum wage is not being fought by anybody. I don't want to think that even those who are saying wait a little bit are not saying is a bad thing. I want to clear that air. Minimum wage is embraced by everybody, almost everybody, really. The only issue is how much should the minimum wage be. I remember there was...
I listened to President Museveni for over a period of time on these celebrations, and he uses the economic argument of the excess of supply of labor against demand, that you have fewer employers, so please, if you try to agitate for payment standards, you're going to have a problem with investors.
Now that is President Museveni, but then the employers and the employees, I think for us, we embrace the issue of minimum wage. I talked about vulnerable workers. We have people who are being paid 20,000 shillings per month. Sincerely speaking, that is very unfair. And then we have people who are earning 40 million per month. Yes. I'm not trying to attack anyone here, but we are trying to say if people can earn 60 million per month, then there should be a minimum of somebody who is the last of the last in the employment labor force. So there was a figure that was on social media which was wrong. I remember 134. That was a wrong figure. It is just, I don't know where it came up from. It came up, but right now,
I think it came from the minimum. You know, the minimum wage advisory board made a recommendation, so it recommended that particular figure. That's why everyone was running around with it, but it wasn't like sort of the final.
But figure. Then the minimum wage advisory board is the one at the front line saying it should not be 134,000. It should be according to each sector.
Okay. So
in the economy,
legislatively or regulatively, you set a minimum wage for each sector.
Each sector. So yesterday, Honorable Janet Mukwaya clearly stated that the law has been passed by members of Parliament. However, the bill has been passed. However, we need to understand the roles of the minister
Yes.
in the bill and the role of the board. The minister is supposed to set the minimum wage. Then the board is supposed to propagate, aggregate these wages according to different sectors of the economy. So I will not say that people are fighting that law.
I hope you don't have
we just want people to embrace the issue and the fact that there is need, there is a dire need of regulation of some of these things, including the minimum wage. We should have someone minimally earning, meaningfully earning.
Exactly, across the board.
Across the board,
not
necessarily
per sector. Okay, so I know it's heated there. We're going to come back to you, Lydia, about the social protection aspect, and maybe because I need to go for a break, then we'll come back and conclude over this. Several other issues really that we've not yet tackled. But yes, pretty good, and good enough that people are getting to be informed. The minimum wage bill was passed by Parliament, so it is waiting upon the President and his ministers to make sure that they are sent to it for us to have this bill passed, rather this bill passed into law. Please, let's go for a break and come back and conclude this discussion. Thanks our viewers for continuing with us. We are your number one station, NTV, and I'm called Karagaba Baldwins, coming to you live from the Kampala International Conference Center. And we are simply trying to continue the discussion that was about yesterday, International Labour Day. And so many issues about the labor sector in this country, how employees are abused, how they are extorted, how they are exploited, and what should we do. And so, Lydia, we have the aspect of the social protection, okay? You have a structuring which includes non-contributory, compulsory, and complementary social security. You have the current piloting of a social assistance grant for empowerment, for, of course, the elderly, and then you have the youth livelihood plan, and you have the obligatory contributions of NSSF and the public sector or the public service pension schemes, which is for people in the public service. But is this effective enough? Is it satisfactory? Is there something that needs to be done better? And do you sense that our labor force, with these protection schemes or legislative articles or perhaps arrangements, that this is enough, or there's something that better needs to be done?
Okay, thank you. One, like you already noted, the different social protection schemes that we have as a country. I will not go more to the public one, yes, because that one is already complete, and therefore it covers only for government workers. But I'll go this side of the private sector, probably where I fall and probably where you fall. One, the Act, the NSF Act, for example, or that particular social protection only covers those that are in formal employment, not informal. Exactly, yes. And already we have noted that majority of the labor force...
Actually, NSSF does not permit you to make savings contribution in NSSF if you're not formally employed.
They introduced what they say, the voluntary contribution. So you can make a voluntary contribution if you want, but you see it's voluntary. And remember, I'm the worker, so it is voluntary. But even where it's even voluntary, we have seen. I'll give an example of Kasita. Kasita, Kampala Traders something. They have come up with. They went into partnership with NSSF, and their members, they were sort of like contributing to NSSF, but on a voluntary basis. But it's sort of like a circle. I want to use that language, like a circle. You put your money there, and then the person in NSSF is Kasita, but then Kasita has members under that particular arrangement. Not wanting to go there so much, but looking at the social protection that we have here as a country, I think majority of the workers are not covered. And once they are not covered, this whole thing goes back. Once they are not covered, going back to the current employment structures, where we are seeing a trend of casualization of labor, it means that majority of the workers are not contributing to the NSSF. Recently, I interfaced with a situation where a teacher was being referred to as a casual teacher, and therefore that's why they are not contributing her NSSF, because it's casual.
So many employers who are making people work for them on this kind of casual contractual arrangements, where they don't have any other further obligation other than just paying them peanuts for the delivered task.
So the setting of the social protection systems, we need to rethink around it properly. And it also goes back to when we're talking about the whole issue of minimum wage and everything, and the entire economy around employment. It means that if we don't have protection nets for workers in this country, majority of them will not have social protection around them.
Which means that the life after employment is going to be extremely risky, vulnerable, and
and then we go back into the seg. You see, you've worked for 50 years, you've not saved anything, because I'm only getting from hand to mouth. That's the salary I'm getting, hand to mouth. So what I earn, I just eat it. I can't save. I can't invest, I can't do anything. And that's why you see, nationally, we have very limited investment being done. And also, it's because I'm not able to save, and even if I'm going to invest, I invest in tomatoes. Okay, not meaningful investment that I'll make because maybe of my savings, if I was earning probably a living wage, or I had something that was protecting me at that level. But also that the government has to find ways of going into the informal economy. How have other countries done it? We have seen so many benchmarking strips, people going to benchmark the informal economy. How then is this transformed into the formal economy? How do we transform the informal economy? Majority of the workers in this country are in the informal economy. And you know what? I will just slightly hint on yesterday's theme that we are working with as a country, promoting employment through enhanced public infrastructure development.
That is for Uganda.
That's for Uganda. Yesterday as we're celebrating. And when I went into the NDP too, it's basically talking about the energy, the transport, and the ICT. And I said, employment is good. I don't dispute. Yes, it's good. They host those particular infrastructure development. They sort of like indirectly promote employment somewhere, somehow, or businesses or my merchandise and everything. But I'm saying that we are still looking into the informal economy. You're not looking into transforming the formal economy to the informal economy to the formal economy. Yes. And once we leave most of these workers in the informal economy, then they will not be under this. And what needs to be done is that then how do we get maybe a replica, for example, what I was talking about of Casita. It's someone needs to look at it. Has it worked? Are people actually contributing? Someone once told me, how about mobile save? That money, the moment I'm transacting on mobile money, automatically somehow my money is, I save maybe 100 shillings and it goes automatically to my saving. We need to think creatively.
Yeah, and you know, it feels like most of these particular arrangements that are international, including savings aspects, approaches, associations which help to boost people's future incomes and safeguard them from the plight of post-employment arrangement. There is some kind of thinking that there's strategic fight against all these arrangements, including labor union. Now, Betty, because you know well about this, that Articles 29, of course, including 40 of the Constitution, they provide, just as she was saying earlier on, the right to unionize, okay, to take labor action, to have combined bargaining power approach. And the Employment Act, Article 76, of it advocates for industrial action. It says that the organization or intended organization of a strike or other form of industrial action shall not constitute a fair reason for dismissal or the imposition of a disciplinary penalty where the strike or other industrial action is lawful. But when this is done, for instance, if somebody got to hear that maybe here at NTV or perhaps at NSSF, people have gotten together and they are trying to gang up against the employer, you see how they'll be smashed. It's like really powerless in that regard. So why does it seem that the labor unionization efforts in Uganda are weak? Is it a political strategy to weaken? Because you know how unions have fostered transformation and perhaps revolutions in different countries on a national scale. Do you feel there's an effort to actually disempower the need for unionization in the country?
Thank you, Baldwin. Right now, unionization scheme or approach targets the informal sector. I don't know, for some reason.
The formal sector, yes.
The formal sector.
The people who are waged.
The formal, not those in the informal.
Exactly. So, and according to statistics, we have 44 trade unions in Uganda. 44. 33 are under NOTU.
Yes.
Then 11.
That is National Organization of Trade Unions.
Then 11 are under COF2. When you say that they are weak, okay, not weak. You use the word weak, but
yes,
maybe
they're not hard. They're not.
They are hard, but
seem to be working on the very plight of the people they are representing. They actually get to be hijacked somehow by political forces.
They are not weak, but maybe the approach of joining these unions is also still a problem. Since these unions are still independent and membership based, I mean, if I think I need to be part of you, then I'll join you. If I think I'm empowered enough, most times some of us find ourselves not joining these unions, which is a very, very big problem. The fact that these are voluntary. I will join a union as long as I feel like.
Yes.
Maybe if these were part of our organizations, it would be easier for us to work through these unions and also advocate at that level. But the fact that I have to be looked out, or I have to look them out on my own, or as an organization, it has remained a problem. Then we also have a problem of people shifting from job to another. For example, today I am in Platform for Labor Action. Tomorrow I may join NOTU as an organization.
Yes, because of poor working conditions,
no,
or perhaps returns.
Because
and
of
better offers than the other side.
Because of better
exactly. That is,
so you find yourself getting like they are loose ends. If I am going to leave this kind of work, because mind you, these unions are also curtailed to different sectors. For example, the fisheries have their own unions. The people in the milling, whatever, they also have their. So if I leave the advocacy I am doing right now on labor, and then maybe I join one on women issues, that means I shift even the union. I have to join another union. So that has also has remained a problem of not having permanency in these unions. There is a lot of to and fro of the membership within the unions. And then another issue is that there are other avenues that have come up to tackle some of these issues.
Like which one?
Like Platform for Labor Action is here tackling issues of the workers. So some people find these other avenues more convenient because they don't have any membership. They do not call for any association. So they have embraced the easier way of tackling their issues.
Yeah, and it's a very, most of the things we are discussing are really wide-ranging. And I'm cut down by time. Basically, just, and it's just 30 seconds, then I get to Lydia, just conclusively on that issue, just trade unions.
Yes, and then unfortunately, there has also been trust issues in some of these unions, where people are saying, I don't resonate with the leadership.
And at times, at the times the union leaders, they prostitute themselves to politicians and they hijack.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, these have not grown to their expectation because of those limiting factors.
Okay, I hope they're listening. So let's wrap it up like this, on a very somber issue, okay? The plight of exported labor. And Lydia, just help me as we wrap it up and give hope, perhaps if there's any hope. Of course, there's good news. Bank of Uganda states that this is the highest earning remittance, rather, foreign earning source. 1.2 billion of people who are employed in Middle East countries are earning this much to Uganda, and we have about 140,000 people employed in there. But the pain these people are going through, people are being killed, people are being molested, people are being thrown on the streets, and they come back languishing. So what is being done to intervene, and what should be done? What should people do to help out this particular society, besides government itself? Okay,
yes, thank you. The whole issue of labor migration, it has caught our eyes, I think, 2015 and onwards. Now, the government is trying to do whatever within public within its own means, because it's a sector which also the government is still learning. Because remember, people have been moving, but not in that particular coordinated manner. But of course, it being the Middle East and its human rights record, probably that's why it has so much come to the forefront. Now, one of the government what has done is, of course, to license recruitment companies that should be able to take people. One thing I may tell the viewers out there is that most of the challenges or the problems or the cries that we hear, they are not actually from people who went through proper recruitment agencies. Because if you went through a proper recruitment agent, the government knows that you have gone. There is a system that the Ministry of Gender has come up with. The government knows you have gone. In case there is a problem, your next of kin can reach out either the Ministry of Gender or the company that took you, and at least you can be back. At least if it's a medical condition, you can be treated. But if these ones who are recruited or illegally trafficked or taken out of the country, or those actually who go on their own, when they reach, especially in the Middle East countries, they find challenges. Because in the Middle East country, because we don't have a lot of time, but I would just tell someone watching right now, is that they have what they call the kafala system. The kafala system is what they call the sponsorship system. For anyone to work there, you must have a sponsor. And once you have gone through, either individually or another illegal person who is not properly the government way, it means that when you reach the other side, you are more like a property. So anything can happen to you. You do not have protection measures that side. But if you have gone through the government structure that has laid down or put down, then at least you have a fallback position. You have a company on the other side to call.
What you're implying that the people who go through these labor export agencies, they're actually safer.
They are
because
safer.
I've had certain lamentations about this whole.
Yes, yeah, and I said they are safer. I've not said they're the best because, for example, also ask ourselves, as a country, we are taking labor to the Middle East to work as what? Majority of them working as maids. And anywhere in the world, the domestic work sector is one of the high-risk employment sector. Because when you are in someone's home, like here in Uganda, how are domestic workers treated? So there are those who treat domestic workers very well, and those who treat domestic workers really badly, just in the country here. So the same applies even to those countries. There are homes where the workers will be treated very well, and there are homes where that worker will probably be treated in the worst form. But at least if the person has gone through the proper channel, the company on the other side, which is also known by the government the other side, can be held liable, or they can even change this person from this household to another household once she complains or he complains.
So implicitly, the people
need to go through the proper agents or the proper channels that the government has put down. But of course, in the same spirit also, we call upon the government to strengthen the monitoring. The monitoring of the people that have gone to work in those countries needs to be strengthened, and how by appointing more labor touches in countries. Like we an example like Saudi Arabia, we only have one labor attaché, but Saudi Arabia, just the city like Riyadh is like the entire Uganda, one city. So imagine if this person is now in charge of the entire Saudi Arabia. So it's not easy to manage. So we need to have more labor attaches appointed so they can monitor the labor situation of these migrants, the Ugandan migrants who have gone to work in that particular in the countries. But also we need to think about the entire issue of social protection for these people who are working outside.
Exactly.
We
and
need to think in that way.
They are earning the country
so
much money, about 5 trillion shillings, which is almost, I can't tell, like about 12% of the Uganda budget structure. So, Lydia, very impassioned discussion about these issues, and at times they can draw tears even to you, but at the same time they have excitement. And I believe perhaps the discussion continues. Let's take it on a pause over now, and we just greatly appreciate Betty Iyamuremye, the Advocacy.
Iyamuremye.
All right, Advocacy and Communications Officer, PLA, and Lydia Bwiite, Manager, Rights, Social Protection and Accountability. Both of you have been profound.
You're welcome.
Hoping to see you again.
Yes.
And thanks our viewers for being with us over this particular discussion. I believe it is extremely pertinent that we get the people who are working for this economy to be treated right. Please, if you're out there, you're a government agency, you're an NGO, you're an MDA, or a corporate institution, and you want us to have a properly structured discussion, come talk to our general manager, come talk to me, talk to our sales team, and we'll have that done profoundly well. We give you all the respect. Continue tuning on to NTV. I'm Karagaba Baldwins. Have a good day.
NTV, turning on your world.